What's going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, Leo King, and we are here live for Deep Astrology, your weekly astrology forecast for the week of March 31st through April the 6th of 2020 here on highvibe.tv. If you never watched this show before, make sure you check out highvibe.tv because we are an exclusive network with members, and we also have free content as well that do daily video horoscopes, weekly horoscopes. We also do so much more than just horoscopes. We go into weekly tarot, daily tarot, intuitive, art shows, so much all about the high vibrations of the universe, and of course, just having a beautiful time in this wild universe that we're living and spreading that positive vibe. Make sure that you check us out at highvibe.tv or our apps on Apple TV, Roku, Android, and we're on Amazon Fire as well. And if you never really watched this show, what is it about? Well, I'm going to channel the astrology for you for this week, and then I'm going to go deep into the charts, which are brought to you by Astrology, which is on iOS, Android, and any of the Mac devices. If you happen to be on a PC, make sure that you download Solar Fire. Thank you so much to them for always providing the charts for us. Wow, here we are. Rabbit, April 1st and April Fool's Day, but don't forget to say rabbit. Now there's an elephant in the room that the world's in a very, very intense place that we've never felt before in our lives. But I want to remind people that history happens again and again and again, and it does repeat itself, and astrology is what helps us understand that. Because, to be honest with you, as an astrologer, and I would say that all astrologers use history to understand why the planets are doing what they're doing. What we do as astrologers is we take a look at all the planets and where they're at, and then we look at, well, when was the last time that these planets did this? Or when they met up? And we look at history to find out. And then we see the patterns in history, and then we make predictions based upon the facts of what we see through history. And at this point in time of where we're at right now, it's kind of crazy because we are at Jupiter and Pluto to come together in Capricorn, which we've never seen in our lives, at least. Now, the last Jupiter-Pluto conjunction that happened was in December, on December 11th of 2007 in Sagittarius. Now, think about your life from December 11th of 2007 to now this week, where they're going to meet on Saturday, April the 4th, and into the 5th here, where we are going to see this massive change and an ending of a cycle since then of 2007. Now, Sagittarius has to deal with every door open, every opportunity. But with Jupiter and Capricorn at its fall position where it doesn't do that great, of course, it's in Saturn's house, and Jupiter and Saturn are very opposite. Saturn restricts and Jupiter opens. And Pluto is this intensity of transformation and rebirth that happens to be in Capricorn that arrived in 2008. We didn't see Jupiter and Pluto meet when Pluto had entered into Capricorn in 2008 because Jupiter had passed by Pluto in Sagittarius. So this big Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is an intense, powerful, transformational experience for the whole entire world. If you want to really start to put together the Jupiterian understanding of the collective opinion, the collective belief, the collective ideal that we have inside, but it's now about focusing on things that matter, focusing on our life and getting to the bottom, getting to the root, and starting to realize that the only doors that are open for us now are the roads that are defined, the rules, and more importantly, things that actually matter, that have integrity in our lives. And now this is a big one because it also deals with the structures of the world. That's what Capricorn deals with. We also have the south node of the moon, right, which is here in Capricorn, or if you're into Vedic astrology, that's Ketu. So there's this illusion to it all, right? This illusion of fear, especially because Pluto deals with fears. And when you add Jupiter on top, well, let's just take the biggest planet and put it on the planet of fears. You catch my drift? The biggest kind of fear that you could ever feel. With the south node there, the illusion becomes extreme. It almost becomes the ultimate pandemic itself, which is the fear that the pandemic that spread actually throughout the world, bigger than the pandemic that we talk about on the news and so forth, is actually fear. And what this fear is the new structure of the new world. If you want my honest opinion, no, we will never go back to the way it was, the way that the world felt, the way that it does when they say they're going to turn just back on the world and we'll just come back on the same. The astrology shows that's not going to happen. That's because Saturn's now in Aquarius. And Saturn hasn't been in Aquarius since the beginning of the 90s. And this is talking about these major structure changes that have to be hard to go through, but about connecting the world in different ways and disconnecting from things. And so when you add these elements of Jupiter and Pluto and Saturn in Aquarius, but this Jupiter and Pluto in Capricorn, it's much more restrictive. Jupiter doesn't get all of its big benefic energy in every area. It gets one to maybe even, if you're lucky, two paths. So it can feel right now in life like there's not a lot of doors, but they're limited doors. But that doesn't mean that it's all bad. It means that the limited doors are powerful doors. And you have to start to see that in your life that you have to make choices. And there's not a lot of options, but they're almost like divine choices in your life right now about doing what matters and what feels like a calling to a higher purpose in your life. And I think that when you mix Mars that just went into Aquarius, which, wow, it met up with Saturn on Monday and here on Tuesday, the end of the month, we have Mars and Saturn that are exactly at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And this is a big deal because the last time that Mars went into Aquarius was in 2018. And when Mars came into, from the late spring into the summer of 2018, Mars had to go through a retrograde. And Mars went retrograde with the South Node in Aquarius, which is very debilitating. Trying to fix your world, trying to think that you can make it all happen, and it doesn't work out. And look at here, Mars was in Capricorn for the last month and a half, and here it was with the South Node, and here the world's been trying to think that it could fix everything, and hasn't really felt that it could fix itself. But now with Mars in Aquarius, innovation comes, and it's the innovation through people. And with this on Saturn, Mars is activating Saturn and Saturn is activating Mars. So we have two major conjunctions, Mars and Saturn, the two malefics in Aquarius, that are saying it's time for people to focus on a future that it's hard to accept the reality in which we're in right now. It's hard, especially because it almost looks like there's only a couple options in your life or none at all, or just whatever the road is that was paved in front of you. But Pluto is there that says that it will activate massive, powerful transformation and extreme change. If you were in alignment with your truth of your calling in your life, and this is hard because Mars and Saturn are malefics. They are very defined. Because Mars and Saturn are cardinal planets. They're ruled by, Mars is ruled by Aries, a cardinal sign. And we're in Aries, by the way, with the sun. And with Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, it's a cardinal sign and it's very directional. And then the other rulers of Mars and Saturn is, Mars is ruled by Scorpio, a fixed sign, a fixated water, which is intense and passionate and penetrative. And then when you add Saturn, its second ruler is Aquarius, which is a fixed sign of connection and electricity to the things that make sense and to looking into the long-term future, which this is all about what choice in your life are you making that you have to take seriously. And I know it might sound like, I don't see any choices, but this is where you need to see that there are so many open doors because the big door that you are choosing in your life that makes sense to the calling, that makes sense to destiny in your life is right in front of you. But you have to accept it because Pluto is about receiving. And I think that with Jupiter, we have to be open to receiving the way that things are and making the best of things. You know, there's always those examples like taking lemons and making lemonade, and I know that people don't want to hear something like that. Of course, we're really used to a world where lemonade is given to us drive-through and really fast and quick, and we don't have to do anything anymore in life. But there's this notion in Capricorn where it feels like, wow, I have to actually, this is what I have, and I have to turn lead into gold? Now that comes from alchemy. And what I think is interesting right now is this is a very powerful week, not only because these intense aspects are happening, especially with Mars and Saturn together, and with Jupiter-Pluto together this week. There's this intensity of like really making sure you understand what you really want in your life, because Mars deals with our identification and our wants, and in Aquarius, we didn't really get to see it happen in July and into all the way into September of 2018. There was so much just, that was going on then, where it was almost like you tried your hardest and it didn't work out. And we have to get over that. We got to get over that. We got to see that we can find connections with whatever might feel like scraps that we have in our life, and see that all the things that you had built to this point in your life, that you had been on journeys with, that you had seeked, that you had understood, brought you to this point. And you can't get down on yourself, or you can't shame yourself and say, I'm behind the curve, or I should have done this more in my life. The universe is saying, okay, maybe you can look at it that way. Or maybe you can look at it as like, maybe the universe wanted you to have just this, because in life, believe it or not, you can take the smallest thing and turn it into the biggest thing. It's just about whether or not you believe in it. And Jupiter and Pluto are about major belief changes, and the belief changes which are connected to our understanding of what the world is like, and our understanding of how we view the world is changing in a place to where it's like, it's about those who have the confidence, the courage, the innovation to take what they have and create the ultimate destiny with it. That with Uranus and Taurus, which is actually going to start squaring Mars this week extremely, and we are going to see this Mars-Uranus square, you're going to have to fight against yourself and your inability to move forward in life. You're wanting to keep going backwards, especially whether that's, I just want the world to go back to the way it was. You're going to have to fight this whole aspect of, well, I need to have this in order to make that. You know, tonight I'm wearing my microphone, the clip's broken, and I've got duct tape under. But you would have never known that. That everything in life right now is at a place with Uranus and Taurus, especially, we got to remember Uranus and Taurus in the 30s, right? Go look at the 1930s. Talk about innovation, talk about looking at how it seems impossible to be able to build all these ships and to build all these huge aircraft carriers and to even build all the ammunition and the tanks for World War II, yet it was women that were in America and these factories that were doing it, and the men were out there at war, and somehow the women turned out more ships and more airplanes and more bullets and more things than I think any man has ever created in life. Which is the irony of it all, is that I think that, you know, this idea, and I'm putting that into like, you know, when we think of, oh, well, men can do this better or women can do this, you know, it's like Uranus flips everything of our values and how we view things about our understanding of what can be created, and throws it all up on its head and puts the lid and takes it off and throws it away and says, what are you talking about? This is a time for you to get over going backwards. Because Mars in Aquarius wants to move forward, and Saturn in Aquarius wants to move forward now, because it's been a 2.5-year cycle so far of Saturn that entered into Capricorn in December of 2017. So we've been through a lot when it comes to feeling harshness, when it feels like, you know, you've been pushing for something so hard and you just have to keep putting the grind on. Well, it's now time to take all that grind you've done and start moving forward with things. But if you've been not doing the grind, if you haven't really put a lot of the work in, yeah, it might feel like, man, I made some bad choices in my life. But you got to remember that Aquarius, and especially Uranus and Taurus, is saying you still have, at every moment in life, this amazing ability to create, and more importantly, to take what you have and still make it great. This is a very important week for me in my life, because it was on April 10th of 2012 when I was broke. I had no money. I was doing readings as an astrologer on Venice Beach on the boardwalk. And I was doing it for donation, and it just wasn't working. There were days when I only could make enough just to get enough gas for the car that was broken and had expired tags on it to just get to my next destination. I'm trying to figure out how to get food. It was that moment when I knew I had a laptop, and I was thankful by God that I had that, and it had a webcam on it. And I started to say, well, maybe what if I start doing a daily horoscope online about the collective consciousness and say illuminating the collective conscious? Let's see what happens. And I'm here today, 8 years later. So, as somebody who can, I don't know, I guess the best way to say it is, in life, sometimes we just don't realize that we have everything we've ever needed in our lives right now to create the most amazing things in the world. And this notion of trying to look at the outside constantly, to keep thinking of when you have this, when you've lost this much weight, when you've got that much money in your account, when you've got this change in yourself, when you've worked on yourself long enough, like we hear in the spiritual community so many times, that you'll finally, that's when you're ready to do something? No. You've got it now. And the big news this week is Venus is moving out of its home sign of Taurus and coming into Gemini on Friday. And this is a big deal. Because if you go back to, late April, May, and especially May and June of 2012 was the last time that we saw Venus come into Gemini like this, where it's going to do an extended stay, because Venus is going to go retrograde on May 13th. Now, I know I'm talking about, a month and a half from now, but I'm preparing people to remember that this is going to be the last full week here of Venus before it enters a shadow period, just how Mercury will enter shadow. And shadow periods, of course, are when a planet enters into a space to where a planet will retrograde and come back to the position to where it will then come stationary direct and then come forward. So the shadow is the area in the zodiac that you're going to see a planet do its retrograde back to its direct motion and then come out of it. So that zone is 5 degrees of Gemini all the way to 21 degrees of Gemini. And so this is the week where Venus comes into Gemini. By this weekend, we start to see Venus at 1 degree, starting to trine over to Saturn. So we need to make choices with relationships. We need to make choices in our self-worth. And we need to see that the universe is supporting us to make things happen. And I'm just going to put up something that I know that might sound crazy right now. But as I just walked out here into the studio right before and I prepared and got all the charts ready for today, on the news, it was everybody freaking out about, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to do this? How is the economy going to do? But there's something to say about Venus and Saturn. Venus and Saturn in a positive alignment in air means we need to start to use our head. We need to start to think about things. You need to start to think about ways to do things. It might sound crazy, but I was before that April 10th of 2012, when I was doing this and actually through the reality world and doing reality shows to push my astrology persona. Trust me, when I would wait for the show to air, I thought it was going to change my life and bring me millions of dollars. It did anything but that at that time in my life. I was buying cell phones for $19 at Walmart, and then I was selling it on eBay for buy it now for $49. Just came up with some way to figure it out. And so this is going to be a time where people just have to realize that there's so many possibilities in a space that it's just more of the uncomfort with the North Node still in Cancer and with the moon that starts this week in Cancer with this North Node here that's going to oppose Jupiter-Pluto, that's going to make some weird quincunx action over to Saturn and Mars. And more importantly, we're going to have the Sun in Aries square the moon in Cancer. Actually, that's happening almost right now, coming into Wednesday morning. And so there's this strength we need to find, but if you let your emotions just start to go into this I'm lazy, or I'm too afraid, I'm too scared by Jupiter-Pluto, or I'm too emotionally connected to my safety, even though really, are you really safe if you're going to stay in the same place? And then there's going to be people, and then I can already hear all the critics in the world, and my guides are telling me this, it's like, but I am stuck in my same place. Well, if you don't believe in other dimensions, or if you don't believe that we have the power with not even the real electromagnetism from our heart that comes out, if you don't believe that you have the power to change your whole entire reality around you, and you're so fixated on this external world, then maybe Dolores Cannon was right. Maybe the splitting of the earth is really happening, and there are people going on the 5D Earth, and there are people really staying on the 3D one. Because her prediction, in my opinion, has come true. The Mayans' predictions have come true. Because this Venus aspect that's coming is intense. It was the activation point of 2012, in my opinion, because Venus now is entering into the star system of the Pleiades. It just was with Algol, and here it is. It's coming into Gemini. And this is where, in Western astrology, in the tropical zodiac, this is where the Pleiades are. And this is a very important time where the retrograde is going to happen, where you're going to have to remember and go back to the star system that holds the Lumerian codes of humanity. To remember that humanity is superhuman, but that we are in a world that is trying to showcase an opposite, that we are not. That this thing can take us down, that thing can take us down, that an economy, that a virus and all that stuff, that we are doomed. But there's this light to remember that we are superhuman. Look at what we are able to accomplish. What are we able to do? We haven't even seen, with now Mars and Saturn that have activated here in Aquarius, we haven't even seen the possibilities yet of all the accomplishments that humanity can do, because it was in 1991 when Saturn was in Aquarius that we were not talking on cell phones unless you had boo-goo amounts of dollars, and it was those old ones in those Mercedes, and it was like, hello, in the center console. And even then it barely worked. But it wasn't until Saturn came into Aquarius like it was last time that we started to see the internet, that we started to see cell phones. And now look at 30 years later. It was the 90s that the personal computers came out that actually were more connected with color. No, I'm not talking about the 80s with the Apple IIe and the floppy disk. I had that in my bedroom. It was my second birthday present from my grandfather. Thank you, Papa. God rest your soul. And if it wasn't him bringing me that computer, I wouldn't be doing this network right now the way I am and figure out how to do the cameras and build all these live stream things. We're doing this for 4 years, live streaming you astrology with multiple cameras like a TV studio. But it's like innovation is everything now, and you got to find that. And Venus here is making sure that you're going to have to pick the best relationships in your life with the Saturn trine that are going to connect you to innovation. That you're going to remember that you have the mind, that you have this super strong mind especially, that can figure things out. And that you need to remember, and you need to start to target your mind on your inner values, your inner tools to create, your inner ability to manifest things right now. Because this is a time where, you know what? I know the world, it looks crazy, but it's being rearranged for us to be in a much better world that we don't even realize yet. And so instead of sitting there all day trying to figure out the world, this is a time for us to go in and figure out our individual selves, to figure out our superpowers, to figure out what we can contribute to make the world better, to continue to have the courage also to rise up, to have your voice, to speak, because that's what Venus is asking for moving into Gemini. That's what Mars in Aquarius is asking for, to rally up humanity. And this is a time for us to all step up into our own individual, unique, powerful selves and stop looking at what other people are doing, but what can you contribute in your unique way to the world? Because we are all unique, and that's what Aquarius says. And now with Mars here with no South Node, with Saturn here, to really activate Mars and say, go rally up all these people. Go get everybody into their individual, unique form. And be that form. Because this week, it's the biggest transformation, even though Jupiter and Pluto will meet another 2 times, in July and in November. This Jupiter-Pluto that is activating is ending the one from 2007. And if you're going to continue to think that this world is going to go back to the normal way of just buying a plane ticket and going to this country and doing this, remember the South Node is coming into Sagittarius next month, because here in April, we're 1 month away from the nodes leaving Cancer and Capricorn. And with the South Node in Sag, that deals with travel, that deals with long distance journeys, that deals with big kind of journeys, we're moving into Gemini, especially even with Venus here, which is cars, walking, bicycles, closed environments, your environment around you, your own city. People got the experience of the lifetime over the last 12 years. Ironically enough, too, Walt Disney was a Sagittarius, and this is the longest Disneyland's ever been closed. Jupiter and Pluto and Capricorn is something we've never experienced, because you got to remember that Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn, which have all been together here, we've never seen this since 1284. So 730 to 40 years later, here we are. And our ancestors that lived through that time went through a lot of feelings like this time. Because, I don't know, 15 or 16 plus 7, you get 3 and you get 4, you get about 24 years after the Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn conjunction of Capricorn like we're going through right now. Because remember, Saturn comes back into Capricorn in July and meets with Jupiter and Pluto. And that was just 25, 26 years later that Friday the 13th and the Knights Templar that were hired by the church get killed. So you got to remember that there's these moments that we are all going through a crazy moment in life. But remember, it was in 1284 that Uranus was exactly in opposition to that Saturn-Pluto conjunction with Jupiter and Capricorn. And the North Node was in Capricorn. That meant the powers that be that tried to control, to go against the comfort of the people, did win. We have Uranus in trine in an Earth sign, and we have Uranus that has our backs, like the Renaissance period of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction that was in 1518. So don't lose hope, because right now, the best hope we have for the planet is for you to remember that you're a fucking superhuman, and that you have so much within you, and that you already have everything that you need right now to go do the greatest work, to put the greatest energy out there, not only just to the universe, but that you can physically make it through this reality. And this is a test from the universe and whether or not that's possible. And I know that's hard, because it seems like it's impossible. And it seems like, the fear is coming extreme. When Jupiter comes on Pluto, it's just hype. Imagine just somebody that's just a fearmonger, and Jupiter's on top and just boom, 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 and expanding that fear extremely. There's over 30 moons on Jupiter, so think about all the emotions going around with Jupiter. And then when you got Pluto there, and we just saw the pictures of Pluto in 2018, woo! That's some gnarly, weird shit going on. And I'll just end with this, since we are stepping back into Palladian energy, which we haven't for a while. I did my last 3 channeled Palladian transmissions in 2017, and then they told me they were peacing out during Saturn and Capricorn. They were like, we're out. We're not going to be able to get that energy through because there's going to be a black veil from the dark. And this is what's interesting is, if we're going to talk about star systems, if we're going to talk about starseed, if we're going to talk about star stuff, all this Palladian stuff is coming here. But we got to remember, too, that inside of all of us right now, we've got to see that there is so much beautiful energy that is supporting us right now. And we have to remember that support from the highest realms are everywhere right now. But if you're going to believe the puppet show right now and get lost into the fear of the puppet show, you got to remember that to even get the pictures of Pluto, which ironically they were so obsessed with getting because of the amount of energy it took to even get the Voyager missions out there. And if you ever look at Pluto and how Pluto was, Pluto came to a position when it met with Saturn in our solar system that if you were to just even look at, and I've shown it in many videos, a couple videos actually, I think it's in one of my special presentations, that it's almost impossible that we could have seen that. But why deny a planet by calling it a planet, but you're so obsessed to look at it? Is because why is Pluto not considered a planet? Is because everybody is afraid of what Pluto is, which is truth, nakedness, intimacy, financial, who's behind financial things. Pluto is the last planet that does look at everything, that is creepy to go out to, that feels so far away. But it's trust that you must have to go that far. Whether it's sex, whether it's with trust of a financial loan, whether it's trust in death to take you to a better place, or the trust of life, that new life will be okay. Jupiter is going to ask you now to open up yourself and to make your destiny align with that ultimate power of Pluto and make sure you do something with it. Woo! What a time to be alive, right? All right. Now, if you never watched this show, you happen to be watching it on YouTube, this is where I'm going to be looking at the charts. And you're going to see it up on the screen, but actually, if you're on YouTube, we just keep it on audio only. So if you want to be a member of High Vibe, make sure that you join us at highvibe.tv or any of the apps so you can be able to watch this show in its entirety. I'm going to keep the audio going, and you'll see a screen up. And you're able to always see my last couple minutes where I put the charts down and I talk to camera. So just sit and enjoy the audio. But if you are a member of highvibe.tv, this is where you get to enjoy all the charts that I'm going to be looking at. But right before we go there, as I have Craig adjusting all the cameras, I just want to say that the more you go with this new energy, I remember in my life, December of 2007, knowing in my heart I wanted to be a DJ and not just a promoter, knowing in my heart I wanted to do astrology and not just be an astrology buff, that I had to believe deeply that those doors were possible. I remember I thought it would be impossible. And to be honest with you, at that time, there were people in my life who told me that it would be impossible to ever make a living, that it would be impossible to live a life and be an astrologer. And I look back at that right now and in this moment and I go, thank God I didn't listen to that bullshit, and thank God I believed in my passion. Because let's just erase the zodiac signs for 1 minute and let's just bring Jupiter and Pluto together. You only receive what you believe. And I want everybody to take that in for a second. So I'm sure you're looking in your personal life, but now throw that in the outer world. Who's trying to force, like Pluto, like a tick, for you to change your perception of how life should be forever and controlled like Capricorn is? Or is it you that's going to make that choice in that belief system yourself? This is the biggest battle of the mind that we've ever seen in our lives. And it was built up for a long time. All right, let's go to the charts right now. We'll see you, of course, if you are on YouTube, we'll see you on highvibe.tv if you want to watch these charts, but I'll keep the audio going. What's going on? So we got the sun in Aries here at 11 degrees. It's way off Chiron, and that's the good news. Remember last week we talked about all this Chiron energy and this new moon here, but the big news is Mars and Saturn, as you can see here at 0000. Woo! Gosh, am I playing, what is it? I'm sorry, I got called for a second. What? No. Well, roulette. Am I playing roulette? Should I have done 00? Man. Well, you know what's interesting, and I forgot to mention this in the beginning of Deep Astrology, is remember that Jupiter here at 24 degrees with Pluto, this is that conjunction right there, you can see that. You're going to see Jupiter meet with Saturn at 0 degrees here on December 21st of 2020. And that's the 8-year cycle of the Mayan calendar and Dolores Cannon's prediction of the splitting of the Earth in the 5D and the 3D. And that's what I think this Jupiter-Pluto is all about. Transformation of the Earth, going deeper, and then even this Mars-Saturn. But you know, Mars-Saturn is about focus. And we need to be focused on our future. We need to be focused on innovating our lives. And innovation means something that is not working that great that we need to innovate, right? So somebody at one point thought that we shouldn't be on a flip phone anymore. Now, I know there's some people who still have flip phones. It's very rare. Well, I know some of my fans might still have flip phones. I'm not going to just sit there and rat or say crap on flip phones. But I will say that somebody did come up with touchscreens and a whole different way to do a phone. So innovation is doing things that you think are impossible. And you got to remember that that's what this Mars and Saturn is about. Defining and taking the focus on what you think is impossible and making it possible. And so here we are on this Tuesday with Venus here at 27 degrees of Taurus. It just came off the star algol at 26 degrees. You know, this is about not stepping into greed right now, or I need to have this, but using your amazing abilities, using all these great things that you have in your life and actually changing them to do something good. Create something of value. Create something that you can really, truly feel nurtured and beautiful with and good with whether that's something that you have in your life to create with, whether it's making a painting for somebody or letting somebody know how beautiful they are or remembering love. You know, Craig and I, we do a show every Monday called Deep Love Tarot. And you can watch it where we do your love report for the week. And it's on YouTube and it's the full show. And we even have it to where we do all these different readings on there for every zodiac sign. We do a 1K love reading and then we do a 2K because 2,000 people watched it live again for another, I don't know how many weeks we've been having over 2,000 people watch it live every week. But then we do a sex reading. But there's that whole element of us remembering to, or telling people to remember to love, to have love right now. And Venus in Taurus wants to feel good. And if you're going to deny yourself of feeling good, not going to go down too hot. I'm just going to be honest with you. So let's take a look at Wednesday here. Now we're going to start to see the shuffleboard of the astrology get some way more different because Mars is off Saturn now. Mars has conjuncted Saturn and said, I've got my orders. I'm ready to go. Mars is, remember, the warrior, and Saturn, remember, is the taskmaster, or it would be like the general. And here comes Mars into Aquarius. Dun, 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 dun. I'm going to go innovate. I have to go look into outer realms. Then this brings up the star thing I was talking about earlier is what's really out there in the universe. And also remember that Aquarius represents humanity, that humanity is super, it's powerful, and we need to remember that. And there has to be that confidence and that we have to start to learn to get along right now. And that's hard because why? Mars is starting to square Uranus here at 5 degrees. And this is where people are going to hold on to some certain values. Or it's like, unless you're innovating forward to go feel good in life, unless you're innovating forward, especially with love, with right Venus finishing here in Taurus to feel good in life. It's like, why do people not want to feel good right now? I don't know. It's like really weird. More people are on lockdown where they can feel good. But maybe you are feeling good, but maybe is it really the real thing that really makes you feel good? You need to ask yourself that. The sun is in Aries at 12 degrees. We are not in a zone where the sun will not be squaring any of this hardcore energy until late next week. So we got some freedom here to actually start to check our innovation out, start moving forward into better things, start finding our greatness. Now the confusion is going to be there with Mercury and Neptune. See, they're getting close, 16 degrees, 19 degrees of Neptune. So there's going to be some weird things with communication this week, going to be some weird things with trying to understand things if you just don't follow your gut. So you got to follow your gut to intuitively know what's there. When we come to Thursday, it's the last day of Venus in Taurus. I do love Venus in Taurus. It's its home sign. It does feel really good there. And there's a big signal from this Venus in Taurus because it is starting to trine Saturn. It is starting to trine Mars. It is saying life can feel good. Don't deny yourself of that. Because through these times and through these energies that are harsh as we are adjusting reality, we are adjusting the earth, it doesn't mean that through hard times you still can't feel good. It reminds me of an old war movies where it's like the best scenes in the movie aren't sometimes the war scenes, but they're the ones where it's like, how in this crazy moment are these guys and girls all laughing and having a good time and telling stories and enjoying themselves? I don't know why I'm thinking of Saving Private Ryan, but it's like there was those moments in that movie that were the greatest when they're talking and they're laughing about stories, or they find a record player and they play a record and they listen to it. It's like This is what we are in right now. And don't forget about that. And if you're going to come into Venus and Gemini Friday, which is going to be a long stay, even into July, and you don't know how to feel good, then you're going to feel like you're just constantly in your head. Now, the moon in Leo is going to oppose Saturn. So we're not going to, we have not seen this since the early 90s. So the moon in Leo, remember the moon that's been opposing Saturn every time has been in Cancer for the last 2.5 years. So now the moon in Leo, the moon's at home in Cancer, but the moon is not at home in Leo. So this moon in Leo is going to feel a little bit crushing about that love and romance, unless you have to find ways to innovate and do things that you haven't tried before. So you can't, if you want to feel good, you're going to have to do things that you haven't tried before to do it, or you're going to have to find some sort of innovative way to make that happiness happen. There's going to be some sort of confrontation here, like, I want to feel good, but I can't go to the club right now. Well, maybe you need to go in your house and turn on the speakers and get some LED lights and fucking hang out and party or something in that way, right? But if you're going to just sit there and be like, I can't feel good right now because I don't have this, like all this Saturn and Mars is saying, like, you need to take action and try to do something different. You need to put all these pieces, you need to take this wire together. Maybe you need to take this jewel and this iPad and you need to see the electromagnetic, and you need to connect them together, and maybe this will charge it. If I turn on the back of my Samsung, I can charge this phone with that, and I can do this, and okay, I'm good now. You're going to have to try something different. You want to feel love? You want to go on a date? Well, maybe you got to try something different that you haven't before. Maybe you guys meet up 6 feet away at the grocery store. I'll meet you on aisle 2. Buy the bread. So this is going to be a really, really interesting transit. But the moon in Leo is going to be pretty positive with the trines to Aries sun, and also at the same time, I think it's about, with an Aries sun and a moon in Leo, like we have the confidence to do the things we want. And that's Thursday, April 2nd. Now when we come into the 3rd on Friday, boom, we got that Venus in Gemini. Holy moly, I can't even believe we're seeing this again. I don't know, it was one of the craziest times of my life because it was the approach of Venus in Gemini for me that created this whole thing for me in the retrograde in my 10th house. So it was very interesting that I just am blown away to see this 8-year cycle of every Venus retrograde. But this one, because it was 8 years for this Gemini one coming, blows my mind every time in my life. It blows my mind in the world too. It blows my mind how the world changes. It was actually during the time that Venus was in this space that Facebook went public. There's a lot of things that you can look at that time of May and June of 2012 when we saw these energies come in, and we're in the April into the beginnings of May time of 2012 and where we are with Venus. So think about your life and what you were doing coming into that. But this Venus is going to make a trine to Saturn. And that's why I'm saying we're going to have to be innovative for relationships, and we're going to have to think about it, and we're going to have to be in shorter environments. It's not going to be like, hey, let's take you on a date and I'm going to take you on a big cruise ship somewhere and we're going to do this. Sorry, all the sugar daddies out there can't do that one no more. It's a joke, but there's this whole kind of element of enjoying people and enjoying things in smaller spaces or smaller options. But are they small options? Can't you find the greatness and the excitement? Venus in Gemini is quirky. It's trying new things. It finds curiosity. It creates Venus in Gemini reminds me of making a fort or something. Like, let's make a fort right now in the bedroom. Okay, fuck it. Just because it's fun and just to fucking change things up a little bit. We're going to have to be in a world where we change things up. If you're just going to keep seeing, this world has been so Capricorn, it's been like, hi, welcome to the living room. Can you please put down your cup to the side? Did you take your shoes off? We're in Aquarius now. It's radicality. It's trying things new. And with the Venus and Gemini, it's fun. And it's like, we gotta make some fun with this stuff. Venus and Taurus reminded us to feel good. Venus and Gemini is like, I'll show you how to feel good. Let's try this and let's talk about this. And what happened to gossip? What's so weird is I still talk to people, but nobody's really calling each other and being like, hey man, what's going on? Or hey girl, what's up? Like everybody's just texting and everybody's kind of in their own little fucking world. Venus and Gemini is going to force everybody to be like, we need to fucking start communicating. We need to start to talk. We need to start to figure things out, especially with that Saturn, Mars, and Aquarius. And the moon in Leo, oh my gosh. I'm happy that that Venus ingress into Gemini is with the moon in Leo, because it's exactly trine the sun. You're going to see this Friday and this weekend is people wanting to connect, people wanting to really get out of their own kind of individualized kind of processing of these things, because Jupiter and Pluto are about to conjunct. That's going to happen on Saturday here that I'm going to show you. So on Saturday, bang, boom, Jupiter-Pluto, baby. Woo! It's going to be at like 7:44 I think it's 4:44, believe it or not, p.m. Pacific. Jupiter and Pluto, that ends the cycle from 2007, and this also begins a whole new 12 and a half, 13-year cycle. Now, this is the extreme. What beliefs are being implanted into you, and which ones are you going to receive, and which ones are you going to accept and not accept? Because what are you going to receive and what are you not going to receive? And Jupiter and Pluto is saying we have good luck when we receive the things we want that feel in alignment with our destiny or our job or our career. And with all this relationship stuff going on with Venus here in Gemini, with trines to Saturns and trines to Mars, we need to pick relationships that make sense for our life. We need to pick relationships that make sense for where we want to go in the future. If it doesn't make sense and we're not on common ground at all, doesn't mean that we're being a bad human for not wanting to connect with that. It's just saying that, you know what, you're on that ship and I'm on that ship, but we're all going on the same direction, but we're just not on the same ship. We like to stay up and listen. If you were on the Leo King ship, you probably wouldn't get a lot of sleep unless you like to sleep from 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. That's more of my sleep schedule. So, you know what? At 2 a.m., you're going to be hearing me. People that like that would be on my ship. And then there'd be a ship that would want to go to bed at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. And guess what? I would be like, hey, no matter how beautiful you are, girl, and all that shit, it's all good. I get it. Whoop. And so we need to kind of start thinking in terms like that, because that's what this Jupiter-Pluto at the same time is doing, is what makes sense for your long, 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 long journey? Because this is a long journey we're about to go through in a new world. And what's interesting to me is the moon in Virgo is going to be squaring Venus during the time of the Jupiter-Pluto, and we're creating a yod, a finger of God, over to Saturn with Mars, with Venus, with the moon. And this finger of God is pointing at us to make decisions in our life that are about bringing us to a much better future and to take initiative, because Mars is initiative and Saturn is in the inner authority of the innovation of our lives. But it's the finger of God that means that we need to emotionally know the reality we're in, and we need to be connected deeply, although that is a square, but it is the yod, with the north, the north node in Cancer, that we feel emotionally knowing of the reality we want to get to where we want to go, or we need to make changes that feel comfortable to us because we're willing to initiate that reality. It's the square to Venus that's unless I emotionally am stimulated by that, or that person, or that part of my tool that I was born with. We're all born with lots of tools. I've got the tool of a salesman, but that doesn't mean that I want to go sell, paper towels, So we've got a lot here that's trying to transform our lives. That is transforming our lives. Ironically enough, it's on 4-4. This is kind of crazy, actually, if you think about it. I didn't think of that till right now. Hold on. Okay, 4-4. Oh my gosh. Here we go. 4-4-20. And it's going to conjunct at 4:44 in Pacific time. Interesting. We also are going to see Mercury that crosses Neptune into that Friday night into Saturday. So we are in a confusing state, or we are just listening to our guides, our angels, and where we're intuitively called to, and we're making that environment, the dreamy environment that we want, and we're listening to the truth. I'm going to be honest with you all, that the numbers that we see in the world and all that came during a Mercury retrograde, came into Mercury's shadow. And if you go follow the news, if you're on high vibe, every day you've been seeing, as I've been showing you all, how fucked up the numbers are, and I've been pulling every news story up, and then, we're hearing from the doctor on February 1st that no American should be worried. You're at the most extreme low risk of ever getting this thing. And now it's 100,000 people are going to die. 200,000 people are going to die. What happened to you? I thought that's what you told me, dude. So you need to pay attention to the facts more in a much more spiritual way and intuitive way, and feel what feels right in your gut. Here we are at Sunday. Now, Sunday gets a lot of energy going on because that moon is in Virgo, all hyped up, trying to really figure out this new reality that we're identifying with and also experiencing it. But it's that Mars square Uranus. Don't be afraid to innovate and move forward into new realities that are going to make you feel better. Venus going to be still in trine over to Saturn, but coming off that trine, we're going to see a lot of stimulation. We're going to see Mercury off Neptune real quick. Bang, because of course, it's almost back to full speed. It's doing over a degree a day. I think it's like doing a degree, 1.3 degrees a day. Almost coming to that 2-degree spot in the next month where it does 2 degrees a day. But it's a lot as Mercury's getting closer to the sun. And there's a lot more information that's going to be coming in our lives, and our environments are about to change in the most dramatic ways with Jupiter-Pluto, Mercury on Neptune, Mars-Saturn, Mars square Uranus. Like, this is a wild new frontier we're coming into. And we have to look at the positive of it and accept whatever it is and make the best of it, because it could be the most amazing. It's what we're going to accept and what we're going to turn it into. And if you're going to want to see the other way of how you want it to look, and when will it change? Because I keep getting that shit all the time. Hey, Leo King, when does the astrology say this thing's going to go back to normal? I'm like, that's what you all have been telling me since 2012. You think this one's going to go back to normal? Thank God it's not going to go back to normal, because this would be a boring life if it went back to the same way. And as we finish out Monday, we're getting ready for the full moon in Libra. All right? That's going to come on Tuesday. And I'm excited for this full moon in Libra, especially because, well, it's going to be nice to see some beauty and some balance on this life. It's going to be nice to see with the Venus element in Gemini. There's going to be a lot to think about. And I'm happy that the full moon's going to be coming right before it comes into its shadow period. I'm even more happy that, look at Jupiter now is past Pluto at 25 degrees. Bang! So it's like activated this experience into this new world. And also I think that there's going to be a pressure taken off by Sunday about fear, because of what people are going to start to change in their own individual lives. It's not about what the news is going to tell us, although Mercury and Neptune might bring out some really weird news that'll be the most weirdest news we ever maybe heard of on Friday into Saturday. But you need to remember that. This moon in Virgo is trying to clean up your life. And it might be in a weird way that you're going to have to surrender to. And even though it might not make sense, maybe it makes more sense if you follow the spirituality of it or the synchronicities. The last chart I want to show you here is the helio chart from when Jupiter and Pluto meet. And the helio is saying some really interesting stuff. One, the Earth is going to be in square to Jupiter and to Mercury during the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, the first one. So this means that Earth is in a place, when it comes to our mind, Jupiter and Mercury, of trying to figure out what decisions to make in our life. Helio, of course, is the sun at the center, and these are the planets in their normal positions from a helio point of view, meaning the actual positions of where they're at, not from an Earth point of view. There's no retrogrades. Mars is coming to the galactic center. Mercury, though, to be captured, because Mercury moves 4 degrees a day, of course, normally, to be captured right on top of Jupiter while Jupiter and Pluto are conjuncting. But what's interesting is when you look in the helio, we still have Saturn in Capricorn. It's not in Aquarius yet. We still have Jupiter at 14 degrees. It's not even near Pluto yet. So that's why the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is going to take 3 times from Earth's point of view. And that's why Saturn doesn't come into Aquarius technically. When it comes back at the end of this year, when you'll see Saturn actually cross into Aquarius and helio. So we're really not there yet from a universal standpoint yet, or our Dharma standpoint of the sun. The sun's not there yet, but Earth is starting to transition into these spaces. And that's why you don't feel it at full bore when you see these transits from Earth's point of view. But I do want to say that the most positive transit we are going to see is Venus here. It's in Virgo, but it's trine Uranus. And there is a grand trine here with Jupiter. This is all about love and relationships and making your life filled with that love right now. There's going to be a point, whenever it's going to be the government or whether it's going to be somebody that's going to say, it's okay to go have love. Are you going to wait for that? Neptune. And weird quincunx there. Remember, the Earth is in Libra with the sun's point of view, because when we look at the sun from Earth, we're looking at Aries. That's how you know when we do astrology. And I will just show you this since we're here, just 1 second, because I am using a different chart. I am using astro.com. So this is the tropical zodiac. So where Venus is going, here's Algol that I was showing you, okay? Oh my gosh. So that's where Venus was. So Venus crossing out of this Saturn and Mars. That's what I'm saying. Algol's a dark star. That's where we get alcohol from. It's from Algol, right? Because it can be the demon. It's a demon star, Algol is the demon star. And what do people turn into when they get really drunk? They turn into demons, or they bring in spirits. That's why it's called spirits. It's all from Algol, Saturn, Mars. This is also traditional deacons, and this is Ptolemy Lily deacons, so Saturn, Mars. So Venus, though, coming into Mercury. Mercury is, we need to change our environments to feel good. And here, the Pleiades are all up in here, especially when we get to Aldebaran here. This is Archangel Michael at the top, which is in front of the other 6 other sisters, the 7 sisters. This is amazing stuff, and this is where Venus is going to do its retrograde. Bang. Not from Helio, but I'm just using that part of the zodiac. So, it's a crazy time to be alive, I know, but you know what? Are you ready for this big change? Are you ready to make the change in the world? It comes from inside Pluto. It comes from how you perceive it. It comes from who allows you to try and persuade you, I guess, too, with Jupiter and Capricorn of how it should be. And if it's the governments or it's the world powers that are the ones that are telling you to believe in the world that the way that it should be, I would question that with the South Node, because they don't even know what it should look like, or they think they know, and it's a delusion. You should go with your own emotion, your own gut, and with the things that you want to feel in your life. I'm not saying break any laws, but I'm telling you to change the laws of how you accept and believe in your perceptions of the world and listen to your gut to make smart choices still, especially being Saturn in Aquarius and Venus in Gemini. Be smart. But there's a whole world of opportunity that everybody seems to not be seeing that we can finally see. Jupiter and Pluto is the great revealer too. Sure, it revealed a recession last time in 2007 into 8. And we just are seeing, looks like a depression right now. But does that really mean that we all are going to go through a depression of our souls? No. If you actually said yes right now, I would have been looking at you like I am right now. Love you all. Make sure that you join highvibe.tv. It's an awesome, awesome network where we do these daily shows, and I do so many other shows, and we do so many other shows with so many other talent. And of course, I have my awesome Love Mastery masterclass, which is on Wednesday nights at 4 p.m., which you can watch live Pacific, or just watch the recordings. Just join now, theleoking.com or highvibe.tv. Click on Love Masterclass. We have 5 more weeks left. It's not 8 anymore. It's 10 weeks. So we are doing another 5 weeks of this course. And there's already over 16 hours of coverage. Thank you so much for all your support. Truly appreciate it. Please spread the message. Get it all over the place. Thank you for making this show as much as it's been. I can't believe for all the love it's been getting over these months. And we'll see you on the next one.